The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Heads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Heads Shaun and Head Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Heads Radio.
Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
And welcome to another edition of the Sackheads Radio Show, live from the SHR studio in California, back home from Freedom Fest in Las Vegas, Nevada.
And the air conditioning works.
It works for once.
Well, it hasn't been 108 degrees either.
Not yet, but it's coming.
But it was in Las Vegas.
No, it was 116, I think, when we were there in Las Vegas.
I only ventured out like 3 times while I was there, just to go to the car and pull crap out, move it back in.
So I ventured out twice. Once was to go to your car to pull crap in.
Right.
And the other time was when I mistakenly took a walk with Sean, and we ended up outside across the street at a coffee shop to get.
Did you guys go to? I didn't know
coffee.
you guys went to a coffee shop.
We went to Starbucks. Remember, I texted you. I said, "Hey, you want anything from Starbucks?"
Oh, yeah.
Breakfast sandwiches.
Well, if I wanted battery acid.
Yeah, that was the only time we went out. Otherwise, Las Vegas was beautiful. It was 72 degrees.
Did you go outside when it rained?
No, but
I went outside early in the morning.
I was in my room.
And by God, it was like being in Jacksonville in Florida, or maybe downtown Guam, you know. It was hot, humid, raining like crazy. Last thing I think I would ever expect out of Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you.
Thunderstorms. Some
It's my first night there. I'm looking outside. It's cloudy. Wait. Did I drive to the wrong damn town?
It was cloudy, but it was 114 degrees and cloudy. You walk outside, your clothes just like sucked to your body.
I have to tell you this. I'm driving there, and I the first time last year. Oh, by the way, HP, let's acknowledge the people that are in chat. We got Jersey Joe, he's in chat. We got RCOG, he's in chat. Dan Butcher, HP Pundit, he's in chat. And 2 viewers who are currently masked, they are in chat. And Dan says, are you doing video stream tonight? And Dan, no, we're not. We're audio only tonight. We're running on bare bones. And
the reason is we have kind of the bare bones studio set up from coming back into town. And we have a special in-studio guest.
We do.
And she is my daughter. Hi, Kailita. And you can't hear her because she doesn't have a microphone, which is good. But she gets super giddy.
Kailita.
Yes. Do you like that? She gets super giddy. And I'm sure. Do you want to come say hi? Okay, come say hi. Now she's going to say, okay. She's brave. Where are you going?
She's walking over. That's where she's going.
Hello.
And she said that's proof that we have an in-studio guest. There got thousands of people just heard your voice. And by thousands, I mean 2, me and BZ. So
a cast of thousands.
A cast of thousands. So, look, we just got back from Freedom Fest, and it was it was a fantastic time. Every year we go, and BZ, you've been with us 2/3 of the time.
Well,
you've been with us a majority of the time that we've been there.
Now, did you guys go to the one before? Because we went 2016, 2017. Yes. You guys went in 15.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so when Sacco was alive, we went with him.
Before his burgeoning treachery?
Before his treachery. and then we went...
His abject betrayal.
And then we went 16 and 17. And every year... first of all, the folks at Freedom Fest, we thank you guys for having us. Always treat us well.
Noran was fabulous.
Noran is fantastic.
But I got to say why. Noran had no damn help, for one. Now, those were events beyond her control.
Yes.
But if you ever saw her carrying a clipboard and walking rapidly, it's because she was en route some kind of a problem.
Which was all the time.
Which was all the damn
and
time.
she did such a fantastic job. And the folks who put Freedom Fest on, the Skousen family and Valerie and Noran.
Yeah. Now, Valerie wasn't
feeling
feeling well, and that's part of the problem,
Right.
is that because she was sick,
so
Noran had to pick up everything.
They just great people, a great program. You didn't have a chance to go this year, and you could catch it next year. We'll be there, but I highly encourage you to go. Just a phenomenal atmosphere. I can't tell you how many times we were talking, and there were people there with diverging points of view, and you might get a chance to hear that a little bit tonight.
I tell you what, did we cop some great interviews? And later on, I might play them on my show tomorrow night. I got 2 weird-ass interviews. But they were interesting as hell.
Look, and the people there, they may disagree. You have conservatives and libertarians, pretty much. And you don't have any abject progressive liberals out there at Freedom Fest. But the people, it's a meeting of the minds. It's people they go to express ideas, and you have entrepreneurs there with different products and different points of view, alternate currencies, and all these things. But you also have people there that are talking about political philosophy.
By the way, that one chick that you spoke to, I learned my lesson.
Which one?
The one where I kind of shined her on.
Oh. Yes.
So I held up my hand after that. I thought to myself, okay, lesson learned.
But it's I mean, so many different people kind of coming together for this, but the discussion is so interesting. Whether it's somebody's idea that you think is, hey, that's maybe not the best idea, good luck, right? Or whether it's just a different political philosophy, the discussions, even among disagreement, is civil. And people are pretty articulate about their points of view. And I'm going to tease a little portion here. I had the pleasure of interviewing a gentleman. His name's Larry Sharp. And if you're unfamiliar with Larry Sharp, I highly encourage you to Google him, go to his website, check him out. He is such a interesting man and a nice guy, a fabulous human being.
His name is the embodiment of what he is.
Yes, the guy is very, very intelligent and interesting, and he has some points of view. We interviewed him. He's the libertarian candidate for the governor of New York. He's running up against sack of shit out there. I mean, what's his name?
Cuomo.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
I think Cuomo is. I think that actually hails from the Latin word jalapeno, meaning sack of shit.
Correct.
I'm pretty sure.
Correct. Or blivet.
Or either one. So that's a little history lesson.
You're not
going
to ask me what a blivet is?
It sounds a sack of shit, right?
Right. It's 10 pounds of shit.
Yeah.
In a 5-pound bag.
Okay, so that he can
now
be a
you know
blivet.
what a blivet is, right?
Yes,
okay.
Which hails from the Latin root word jalapeno, meaning him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you come to Sackheads Radio and learn, folks.
That's right. We are here to educate.
You can learn. So we had some great interviews. John Stossel, but Sharp, which you're gonna hear about later. And listen, we disagreed on a couple points, and I pressed him on those later in the second part of the interview. And even though we disagree, the discourse we had was very. It was good. It was a positive interaction.
Well, that's here we have the fundamental difference between people on the right and libertarians and everybody else on the left. Because whenever I'm on, I can't tell you how many people I've had to kick off the blog because all I hear is F and S words when they're in comment. They have no dialogue. They have no witty repartee. Listen, all the people that we talked to had arguments to make, and they made them logically and cogently and consistently. And those are the people that I like to speak to.
Absolutely.
If you're going to have a position, defend it And oh boy, did these folks ever defend their positions
and
greatly.
And yes, and that's the key, right? It wasn't just, because it makes me feel good.
No, it wasn't just, I hate you. Well, I hate you back.
Right.
I hate you worse.
No.
I hate you worse, sir.
It was not an emotional argument. It was an argument based on logic, and that's what I really enjoyed. So, I learned, you learned something from me. I learned something from you. So I have to tell you the story because we're going to play our first interview, which is John Stossel. And John Stossel was going to kind of had an interview scheduled at the next booth over, and he was going to. And BZ said we should grab Stossel. And me, listen, I'm not weak very often, but in this case, I was weak, and I have to own it. I have to own it. And I said, no, I don't think we should grab Stossel. He's over there for that interview. Like, if we had somebody waiting and it's like somebody else grabbed him and we missed our interview time, I'd be pissed.
Yeah, I don't want to Bigfoot those guys.
I'd be pissed. And Stossel was kind of sitting by himself waiting, and people were kind of going up to him, taking pictures and stuff. And I'm staring, and he's literally sitting right across from us.
Yeah. Not doing a damn thing.
Not doing a damn thing. And BZ's kind of looking at me like, well, I guess, like you're one of the owners, so I'm just going to sit back here. You said no, and okay, no. And I was thinking, fuck, I'm an idiot. Like, Stossel's just sitting there right in front of us, and he'd be a great interview, and I'm an idiot, and BZ's right. And so I got up, and I moseyed over there, and I talked to Stossel, and I asked, hey, would like to have you on. Is there anything you'd like to discuss? And he said, yeah, as a matter of fact, that'd be great. He said, there's a new project I'm working on, and I'd love to discuss that. So, yeah, absolutely, that'd be fabulous. He said, well, how's about when I'm done over there? And I said, that would be great. And I went back over, and BZ looked at me, and he goes, I thought you said we weren't gonna. and I looked, and I said, yeah, you were right. I mean, there's nothing more to say, right? I didn't want to show, but then I realized, I'm trying to be a gentleman, and if it had been flipped, they would have grabbed him from us in a heartbeat. So
that is absolutely correct. That's the reversal theory. And yep, listen, if you had if Steve Forbes came over and sit down, and he was right that everybody's going to follow him. He's got his own personal bodyguard. We know the dude. We say hello to him for 2 years now.
Yeah.
It's like, hello, good to see you.
Hey, how you doing?
We'd almost rather talk to you than Steve. That's all right. In any event. We saw him there, but if he'd come over and sat down and had a lengthy interview with us, everybody would have come around, and the two people on the booths next to us would have been right over there.
Right. And you know what? You know who I'm surprised that didn't happen with, but I think only because they didn't know who it was Congressman Massey.
Yes.
And they had no idea who he was because he wasn't even on the panel until the following day. And if Massey would have been there and they would have known or paid attention to who he was, they would have grabbed him in a heartbeat because I think we were the only ones that interviewed him, and CNN was there.
Oh boy! Now I did not see them.
Blaze was there.
I did see them briefly.
Breitbart was there briefly.
No, I didn't see Breitbart.
They had like two people there, and they were in and out quick. Yeah, we kicked their ass in 2015.
Oh, speaking of that,
in 2015 we smoked them. And ever since then, Freedom Fest has kind of been SHR's had a big showing at Freedom Fest.
You want some stats? I heard this from Sean, and then I started counting. Mm-hmm. 2016, last year, we had almost 3.5 days, and did 14 interviews.
Okay.
This year, just last week, we had 2 days, maybe 2.25 days, and we squeezed 20 interviews out of about 2.25 days. And finally I realized, Christ, that's why I never got any time to go listen to anybody, because we were busy at the booth talking to people.
Yeah. Look, it was a fantastic interview, but this is why we were so tired. We were 16, 17-hour days.
Easily. We'd be down there at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, and then, of course, we went to our shows, and the show started at 8 o'clock Pacific. Yeah. They go to 10 o'clock, and then after 10 o'clock, when the show wraps up, then, of course, there's, drinking, okay? Yeah. And then so everybody stays up.
Yeah, but not a lot. We didn't do a lot of drinking.
No, we went to bed.
We went to bed.
Yeah, we were in bed by maybe 4:30, 5
o'clock in the morning.
Something
like that, yeah.
So, they were long days, but...
and then we were up at 7 again.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Yeah, right. So
the stats.
And I heard this stat also, and I don't know what the latest was, but with 1 day left to go, we had 51,626 unique listens and downloads.
Yes, and that's thanks to Dan for that, who is in chat right now.
Thank you so much, sir.
So, Dan, we want to thank you from the bottom of the cockles of our little shell-like hearts.
Listen, you don't need to go say cockles to Dan like that. I don't know what kind of mess you're talking about. Dan, I apologize for
and
BZ
muscles. Alive,
and
alive-o.
Know what he's talking about.
By the way, that's a phone number. Cockles and muscles, alive, alive-o. That's like when you dial the Vatican, it's Ecum Spirit 220. So remember those numbers, folks, if you want to dial in. I just give you the straight dial-in numbers. Anyway, Dan, thank you very, very much for that and all your help.
Don't we have an interview to play?
Do we ever?
So I gave you the background and the story about Stossel. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to it, it's available, but we want to play it here for you on the show. It's our Freedom Fest recap. Just like we do, usually we recap Freedom Fest for you guys. Those of you that missed it, kind of give you the highlights. So first interview from Freedom Fest will be John Stossel.
It was fabulous.
The sweeper.
Conservative media done right. Yeah, you're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome to the Sackheads Radio Show live from Freedom Fest 2017, Las Vegas, Nevada. Sackhead Clint here with Sackhead Shaun.
Hello.
And we are so blessed, so pleased to have with us the one, the only, Mr. John Stossel. Sir, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
And I understand you have a new project coming out.
I do. I gave up my Fox Business show, and I'm going to try to reach younger people by going out on social media starting tomorrow.
Wow.
Outstanding. Now, what made you want to go out and branch out and start reaching out to the younger generation, the Gen Zs, the millennials, so forth?
My son convinced me that if you want to convince people that free markets work better, nobody young is going to listen to you as long as you're on Fox. And you ought to use social media, which is the new thing. And I said, come on, it's the new thing. There's always a new thing. But then I watched Facebook. I watched him make a video, which got 7 million hits.
Wow.
And I thought, I'm an old geezer, and I better learn the new ways. So I'm doing that.
So why young people? Why starting to reach out to the younger generation?
Because people my age are not very important because we're old. We're going to die soon. And the young people are the ones who are most hostile to capitalism and most stupid about socialism because they haven't done enough. I notice when I talk to the people who agree with me how often they are home builders or entrepreneurs. People who have done stuff have run up against the regulatory state. If you're a teacher, if you're an employee, you don't see how much regulation there is. You have no clue.
Well, you work so deep into it that it's over your head.
You're part of the regulation, right?
You have no way of seeing it because you're in that system,
Or you hate your employer who's having to have you do a bunch of stupid things because the Human Resources Department has told him he has to.
Yes.
So I'm really fascinated by the fact that you're choosing to reach out to the younger generation now, and here's why. We've talked about it before on our show, and we've heard it other places as well. But the younger generation, they're being taught by teachers that have kind of grown up in the public education system, which is not very friendly to free market principles, which is not very friendly to our actual history and describing this is what the Constitution actually means. Here's why. The Bill of Rights, the importance of liberty. We've kind of lost that. And I don't know if it's because we have a generation of kids whose parents now they haven't fought in World War II, the Vietnam War. The children at least had, even if they were from separate political ideologies, they had a common belief in American exceptionalism, I think. And I think we've lost some of that. I'm not saying war is good and that we should go to war, but I think we've lost some of that as we're gaining distance now between the generations who have served our country in time of war towards a major objective like we had in World War II, and now. And so the fact that you're reaching out to the younger generation is huge. And so when I asked what made you want to do that, and you said your son, it's because this is a very important issue for us that we've discussed.
Huge.
So very pleased to have you hear that. And I'm kind of interested in getting your thoughts on that and how I know you said through social media and so forth, how do we combat that on a nationwide level as Americans, as a society, in order to reach not just the children that are interested or reaching out, happen to be on social media and maybe stumble across it, but to actually make the information more prevalent or readily available to them?
Well, you brought up about 18 points there.
I did. I'm sorry. This is unscripted. So
some responses to it. The idea of American exceptionalism was broken for me by the Vietnam War, where our leaders lied and we did something I thought was wrong. And I was a garden variety leftist when I started reporting and won lots of Emmy Awards bashing business. It was only when I discovered Reason magazine that I saw, wow, there's another way to think about these things, the libertarian way. And look at the stuff free markets have done.
Yeah.
And I thought young people would get this. They see that Uber's better than taxi cabs, that Amazon delivers it more quickly than government does.
Yes.
But they don't get it because it's human instinct to want mommy to take care of us. We grow up with mommy and daddy and they take care of us. Evolution. Our ancestors were in groups of 100 or 200 people where if you didn't listen to what the central planners said, the tribal leaders, as to when to harvest the fruit, you died and nobody was around to give birth to us. So we're programmed to trust the experts. And then the politicians are largely lawyers, and in law school, they are taught that with paper and procedure, you can manage life. Mm-hmm. This unplanned chaos of markets is hard to explain to people. And I'm going to try. You talk about young people. I did, when I was at ABC and I first woke up to I'm like a born-again free marketer. Forgive me, born-again Christians, for stealing the phrase. And then I wanted to share it with everybody, teachers. And I thought, teachers will want to use these ABC videos in their classrooms because they provoke interesting discussion. This is cool radio, when the floor sweeper.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look, this is live right here, right?
It definitely is. So I begged ABC's permission to offer this to teachers free, and it slowly took off. And now I have a charity called Stosselintheclassroom.org where we offer videos to teachers, and millions of high school kids do watch that every year.
Wow.
So that's available.
Do you feel with the younger generation, too, we talked about these earlier, but the advent of these, the advent of everything being right in front of you and getting it quick, and like you said, mommy and daddy paying that bill from the time they're born to maybe 24, 25 sometimes, they don't have that long-term goal that sometimes you need as a free market society, right? You need to let that product build for a long period of time, or you need to work hard to get that money to start whatever business it is that you want to get involved in. We talked about not being able to see government regulation. Do you feel that instilling those values into the young people of it is a long-term game is something that should be focused on?
Well, so much is long-term, but I don't know that I agree with you that it's that the quick entrepreneurship of Apple, say, is different. I mean, it is a good example of the wonders of the markets. People hate the unfairness of the top 10th of 1% having all this money. But Apple's worth like $800 billion now. When Steve Jobs died, how much was he worth? $10 billion.
Yeah.
We can begrudge that, but that's a couple bucks for each iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
And I love my iPhone. I would happily pay a couple bucks for this iPhone.
Yeah.
He created wealth. Entrepreneurs do that. But our instinct is zero-sum game. Donald Trump is in love with zero-sum game. If China's winning in trade, we're losing. It's hard to explain to people that it's win-win.
I agree wholeheartedly. The other thing it's hard to explain to a lot of people is the government interference in everything and how your dollar is taxed so many times before you even get it from your paycheck, so to speak, and why you need to understand where all of your money goes. And young people aren't taught this. Like we've talked a million times. When I was in high school, not as far back as some other people, but we were taught how to balance a checkbook and about how to do taxes and how to run a household and plan a budget, etc. And that stuff has fallen away a lot of. And these kids come out, and I managed younger people for a long time. They have no clue. I literally had kids coming up to me, 24 years old, going, "Hey, I've never filed taxes before, and apparently I need to. Do you know? Is that something work does for you? That sort of thing has gone by the wayside."
But, Shaun, you already indicated why we're going to struggle to talk to young people, because if you say balance a checkbook, they'll say, what's a checkbook?
Yeah. I just pull this app up on my phone right here, and it tells me how much money I have, Shaun. And look, I can download it for you, as a matter of fact, and I think I'm even older than this.
This is Milton Friedman's big mistake, the withholding tax, because people don't write a check to the government. They think they get a refund.
Right.
Yeah, yet the government's earning interest on your money.
Like crazy.
Not much these days.
True, but still.
But they find new ways to take it in lieu of that interest. And we've talked about that a million times. I think at the end of the year, the first time most households have to write a check instead of having the withholdings done, their whole idea on taxes would change tremendously. Because it's, wait a minute, that's $19,000 on my $72,000 or whatever it is. What the hell is going on here? And then all of a sudden, see how many people become interested in what taxation is and what government does to your dollar.
And if that amendment was even passed lawfully. But that's a whole other discussion.
I wouldn't even mind how much they take from us if it were well spent. But it teaches people to be dependent.
Yes.
It gets wasted on union prevailing wages. They spend it badly.
And it's sold to them that it's a good thing. That's the amazing part. Oh, like you said, the refund. That's how they keep people happy is, you get that government money back every year. No, it's your money that they held on to that they're allowing you to have back. There's a tremendous difference. You're not getting money from the government. When's the last time this government has given anything to anybody who's worked?
But I don't think to get back to your projects, or I don't think the younger generation even gets it so much on taxes. And I don't know how much you want to branch out or where you see your project going to where you could get it. You could talk about the free market and so forth and getting that information out to them. But you plan on branching out to teach them the lessons about taxation and the kind of the history of taxation and why it impacts them. I mean, you can branch out this story.
History of taxation.
I
don't think I could do TV on that.
But it's so important. I think
We've
you could.
done stories where we show how everything you buy all day you get taxed on your phone, on your sewer, on your phone line, on your radio, and that can help make that point. But I'll give you a sample of the things were our first stories. One is the rhinos disappearing. So the environmental groups all want tougher laws against poaching. But they've tried that for 30 years. And a rhino horn can sell for as much as 300 thou. So the poachers risk their lives to get the rhino horn. South Africa tried legalizing rhino farming. Poaching went way down because the farmers keep the rhinos behind electric fences. They give them room to roam. Every 2 years, they tranquilize them, saw off the horns. The horns grow back. They have an incentive to keep the rhinos alive. But the NGOs are so hostile to anyone profiting from wild animals that they oppose it. And South Africa took the ban away. It took the legalization, rebanned it. Secondly, some guys come up with fake rhino horn through genetic engineering. You couldn't tell the difference. They could sell that stuff. These idiot environmental groups oppose that too. I have a nice confrontation with this pretty girl from the International Humane Society, and that'll be our first story
that'll
tomorrow.
Be fun.
Aren't those the same people, though, that want to legalize drugs and stop the war on drugs? Doesn't that seem like they would be on the same side of that issue?
I say to this woman,
right?
your rhino ban is like the war on drugs. It's like prohibition.
Yes.
And she doesn't want to legalize that either. I want to legalize them all, but I don't think they do.
Yeah, well, that's an individual act. And so as you go down this, and obviously access is going to be plentiful via social media, as you said. That's going to be your focal point on this.
And where can they find that?
Yeah.
johnstossel.com or my Facebook page.
And, we wish you well. I think it's great. We've talked about the younger generations of conservative libertarians, that whole group, and how it needs to expand, how there's some great young people who just a lot of times don't have the information, and if they have it, their ideas could be changed. So I applaud you, sir. I think it's absolutely
And they
incredible.
don't know they agree with you. They think they're liberal because that's what they're told to be. They're set to memorize a certain set of facts, and they're tested on that certain set of facts. But the moment you start engaging them in discussion, you find out that they actually are pretty darn libertarian, which is pretty funny.
They just don't. They just never realized it.
They just never realized it.
And it takes a lot to convince them. I'm still working on my wife. I've been married 30 years.
Well, sir, I've always been a fan. I appreciate you taking your time. I think this project can be amazing. I really, really, really wish and hope that it reaches the people it needs to, because it changed the face of this country, and I mean that wholeheartedly, sir.
Absolutely. And if there's anything we can do to help you out, please let us know.
Thanks very much.
I mean it. Thank you.
Thank you. Live from Freedom Fest 2017 with John Stossel. This is the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHR Media.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to the Sackheads Radio Show, live and direct from the belly of the Bill Mill, the belly of the beast, Sacratomato Fornicalia.
You totally just harshed my buzz right there. I was listening to that music. Like I was about listening to this, I was about ready to spark up a joint right here.
Like, dude, don't harsh my G.
I was listening to that. I was enjoying this awesome picture that you sent me of this soldier firing a Browning automatic rifle, a BAR, and it says, so, 3 Nazis walk into a bar, which is awesome.
I love the hell out of that. That was great.
That was awesome.
You know, maybe we should have somebody come in here and, like, do this room in Feng Shui. What do you think?
No.
Or have somebody come in with incense and, you know, maybe do something, have some incense in here or something.
No, I like the complete jackassery that we have going on in here. Just the random crap.
It's pretty sparse right now.
That we have. Well, yeah, because we have everything. A lot of things taken down from.
I missed
Fest.
that. I missed the big SHR
banner.
Media thing
Look,
behind you.
If you see any,
that was one of the best things you guys ever bought.
Thank you. If you ever see any of the pictures of us at Freedom Fest and that huge SHR banner, or on YouTube, it's my backdrop. Nobody's really staring at me because I'm not that good looking. But if you do come to me real quickly, it's the big backdrop. But yeah, we'll get that up and running. But I've got my Oakland Athletics, rally towel because we're always behind, so we need to rally. So what'd you think of the Stossel interview?
John Stossel is a good interview. He's
the consummate professional.
Here's the great thing about people that do this for a living. Number one, you and Sean are good interviewers in the first place. That always helps. But it always helps.
I prefer interrogator, but thank you.
Oh, okay, there you go. But it always helps when you've got somebody that's also a good interview, quote, good interview in and of themselves. And all these
especially when we can bring it out with our superior skills.
All these people that come here and do this sort of thing.
Kind of a big deal, BC.
Man,
You're really kind of taken away from the fact that I'm a big deal right now.
No, you are.
Okay.
Listen, I am.
Then let's talk about
readily-
what a big deal that is, really, because Stossel otherwise is probably a horrible interview. And
Right,
he
he doesn't know how to take a
not at all.
theme and then run
Right,
with it.
Right, and we brought it out.
It was only with your incredible skill and personal acumen
Yes.
that you were, because I wasn't in there at all. I was
Right.
just doing the bold thing. But that you were
No,
able
we,
to
SHR Collective, we.
that dredge that out
Right.
of him, and it was like
pulling teeth.
Yeah,
It was.
It was like going to the
pulling
damn
teeth.
dentist.
Right, or interrogation, like I like to
Too
call
bad
it.
we didn't have a drill going on in the background. How
Or a
appropriate
phone book.
would that have been?
Or a phone book.
Hey, John, how you doing? Smack!
a phone book and a fire hose.
It's like, hey, how
on.
about half the LA phone book from the 1960s?
So best scene ever, and this is a true story. So driving with a carload of chitlins in the family, driving back, and there are 8.
Wait,
or
why did Kylie just
8
say, "Oh God"?
Because she knows what I'm about to say. There are like 8 to 12 fire trucks coming up on the side of the road, and clearly there was scorch marks on each side of the highway. And no kidding, this is what happens. No kidding. Some smart ass in the car says, "Huh, must be a cat stuck in the tree."
Right, because we see so many cat skeletons.
because there's all the firemen, right? And that's what they do. They rescue cats. And then somebody, maybe sitting in this room, said, "Oh yeah," and they had to burn the field so they could have a clear path to get to the cat.
That's not bad.
That was awesome.
That's pretty
That
damn
was
good,
awesome.
really.
Because at 13, she knows what the role of a fireman is. So
Yeah, to drag hoses.
right, and to rescue cats.
Because,
Joe, I'm sorry. We love you. It was. It's a joke.
No, it's not a joke. It's true.
It's true. No, it is true.
Well, think of it this way.
Listen,
if
and
it weren't-
tri-tip.
Well, yeah. If it weren't for firemen, trees throughout the nation would be littered with the skeletons of cats.
Yes.
Is that not correct?
No, that is absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
All right. I make my point.
And the reason cops exist is because firemen need heroes too.
Ooh, touche on that one. Nicely done.
Is Jersey Joe cussing me out yet?
No, he isn't. No.
Oh, he's not?
No, he is in chat, but
Is he?
he's being very quiet.
He's
very
plotting
nice.
his revenge right
By the
now.
way, hey, HB pundit Dan Butcher said in chat, I thought Clint's interview with Steve Sanchez was very good as well.
Oh, well.
So, hey, kudos to you from Dan right
well,
there.
Thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate that. And yeah, when BZ and I were actually talking about some of the interviews we were going to play tonight, that was on the short list. I don't think
it was.
I don't think we're going to have a chance to get to it tonight, but that was on the on the short list. But I thank you for listening, and coming from you, Dan, that really means a lot. I sincerely appreciate it. So thank you. But I do want to get back to Larry Sharp, and I don't know if anybody in chat has had the opportunity to listen to this interview. If you haven't, I highly encourage you to listen in because the man is brilliant, and we're going to have to kind of cut into it a little bit. I think it's what we have 20 minutes roughly, right?
Yeah,
BZ?
it'll take us
so
pretty
it'll take
much
us right up to the
to the
break.
top. Yep.
But I'd really want you to hear about what he's talking about, and the part that you're going to miss, the couple minutes that you miss, is really he's kind of talking about, hey, where are you strongest in the state? And he's talking about how he thinks he's strongest within New York City proper and upstate, and also kind of talked a little bit about why the Libertarian candidate could win in the state of New York, particularly if the Republicans don't run a candidate. A Republican numerically cannot win the governorship in New York, and this is according to Larry Sharp. However, a Libertarian can, particularly somebody who's small government and more conservative, because the Libertarians tend to fall to the left on several social issues.
Yes, they do.
And so I tend to have libertarian points of view, little l.
Yes, myself.
Not big L.
Right.
But I do have some libertarian leanings on some social issues. And there's a part here towards the end of the interview where we have a little bit of back and forth. And I pressed him a little bit.
That
on
was
something.
nice. I really appreciated that.
Thank you. And he almost kind of had to cede my point which I'm going to take credit
True,
for because
true. He didn't want to go
he
there.
didn't want to go there, but I kind of. I think I won.
You closed off some of his options.
I did.
So I think that's why people need to listen to this.
I did, but please listen and look, whether you agree or disagree with his point of view, please listen to how he frames his arguments. And like I said, again, I don't agree with 100% of what he said. I agreed with some of what he said. I disagreed with some of what he said. But how the man framed an argument and how articulate he was, he is somebody that I would consider voting for because, look, you're not going to agree with every candidate, but he's
quick, thinks on his feet.
Yes.
Oh, my God, he's fast.
He applies logic, and he's very nice, and I think he's in it for the right reasons.
He backs up his argument.
He does.
Very cogently. You can disagree with him, but by God, does he make a hell of an argument.
So sit back, enjoy this interview from Freedom Fest 2017.
You going to chime in every now and then?
Well, I might.
Okay.
I might, Rabbit. I might.
Okay. G.I.
Go ahead, BC.
All right.
They always feel less than, and the drug is the only answer. And the drug makes them unhappy, numb, and once you're numb, you can kill many people and you don't feel a thing.
So do you...
And what he was talking about right there is particularly, and the reason I want to jump in because he's going to finish this thought real quickly, but it's an interesting what he's talking about is the people that makes you feel numb is that it's not the crazy people that kill people, but it's the people that are using a drug to kind of normalize is kind of his thesis in that area. And I just kind of wanted to put that out for you to think about, kind of get a little idea of what his mindset is. Thanks, BZ.
Would you support or do you support a mechanism and how would it look to prevent somebody who is perhaps mentally ill and maybe violent, maybe they're not on medication, they are, however that looks, in order to prevent them from being able to possess or own a gun? It's a very open question. I'm not pushing an agenda.
No, it's a difficult thing to say. I'm not worried about answering. I'll answer the question. I'm fine with it. There are several issues here that I think are there. One of them is, if we deregulate and decriminalize all drugs, which is very controversial, the pharmaceutical industry is going to be crippled, which is what has to happen. And it sounds terrible, but...
Okay, it sounds terrible, but you got to remember also, Clint, that's the platform of the libertarians.
Yes.
Is the legalization of drugs. If you're not aware of it, you're aware of it now.
That's a true free market. The pharmaceutical industry is not a free market. It is totally hooked up and helped out by politicians to make sure that the amount of money that has to go into the barrier to entry is so high, only billionaires can get there. That's not fair, right? But meth and heroin are directly responsible, a response to the war on drugs, because cocaine is so expensive. Half of Wall Street's on cocaine, right? No one's having problems there, right? They're doing fine. Cocaine is not that bad of a drug. It's a bad drug, but compared to heroin, compared to meth is just poison. Mm-hmm. But meth and...
Isn't crack a form of cocaine?
Yeah, it's not nearly as refined. Well, it is an amphetamine.
Crack is cocaine.
But it comes from, it's basically another derivative of cocaine.
Crack is a CNS stimulant. It is cocaine. It's been cut and processed, but it is cocaine. So this is one area where the man may not really have full understanding of what it is he's talking about. And the people who use crack are not doing so well. And not too long ago, crack cocaine was selling on the street for the same price as powder cocaine because of the supply and demand problem. Anyways, go ahead, BC.
And heroin came because, meth came because heroin's so expensive. Because cocaine's so expensive. If cocaine was actually not expensive, you'd put it in the market. It would be like any other drug. There'd be no overdoses. Portugal decided to make drugs legal. They cut their overdose rate overnight by 2/3. 85, give or take, 85 people in America die every day from overdose, right? That means we save 60 people every day overnight just by doing that.
And a lot of that is fentanyl related because it's such a powerful
That's
drug,
correct.
even more so than heroin.
Absolutely. So now we go to the other place. People are using pain medication.
Stop just for a second. You addressed fentanyl, and for those who are not familiar, maybe you can tell a little bit about fentanyl and whether or not it's a derivative.
So fentanyl is an opiate. It's in the opiate category. Heroin is an opiate drug. The opium poppy, and several drugs are opiums based or narcotic analgesics. Is the drug category. Methadone is one. It's used to treat heroin addiction. They basically, instead of using heroin, you use methadone to dose and get your narcotic analgesic. A narcotic analgesic is things that are painkillers that you get in the hospital a lot of times, like codeine. Is a narcotic analgesic, or your Vicodin is a narcotic analgesic. Fentanyl is a very powerful narcotic analgesic. A lot of times it comes on a patch. People get prescribed it sometimes after surgery, slow release, or whatever it is. And it is a drug. It is commercially manufactured. It is prescribed. It is a controlled substance. It is a Schedule II controlled substance. Schedule I basically has no place in the medical
no pharmacological application.
Correct. By the way, marijuana is a Schedule I drug according to the federal government, but that's a different argument. But fentanyl is I believe it's a Schedule II. I don't think it's a Schedule III. Vicodin I think is a 3. 3 or 4. Anyways, so fentanyl there's a lot of overdoses right now because people, instead of going to score heroin, they're scoring fentanyl. And there's a lot of ODs right now on the black market, and the folks that are using this on the street. Fentanyl is killing a lot of people right now.
Because it's a pharmacological grade.
Yes.
It's a professional grade.
To deal with pain. Well, most people would use marijuana. They wouldn't use, oxycodone. They would use marijuana. Marijuana is not addictive. Marijuana, no one dies from marijuana, right? No one shoots people up on marijuana. If anything else, they just eat a lot and sit around at worst, right? Who cares? Let that happen. So first step is doing that. You make that happen and things change. Now you tell me, once I've done that, now I would look at how do I deal with the medical institutions. Then I'd look at that. Would I be okay with limiting someone to have a gun depending upon their past? That's a scary, slippery slope for me. I'm scared of that because, all right, just because I make a mistake, I rob your house because I either want money or drugs or whatever, I do 2-3 years in prison, I come back out.
It'd be the wrong house. I'm just saying.
Whatever
I have
do.
guns.
Well, maybe you're not there. You're not there at the time, right? Whatever. And so all of a sudden now I made a mistake, so now I lose my right to defend myself forever? That by default is cruel and unusual punishment. That's against the Constitution. That's cruel and unusual punishment.
I differ with that, but that's where me and libertarians part ways sometimes. But I like his argument, and I appreciate his argument.
Can't lose my rights forever. If you're saying, but Larry, you need to be punished, then I should have more prison time then, if that's your answer. Okay, put me in prison to pay my debt, whatever that is. But once I get out, how come I can't vote in most states? It's unconstitutional. How come I can't have a gun in most states? It's unconstitutional. I've paid my debt. Whatever that time is, I paid it. Now I'm out. So history in general does scare me. But if there is some way, my worry about this is if there is some way to show that someone is actually mentally unstable
and violent,
I would be in concept okay with that idea, but the details would matter to me.
And that's kind of what I was driving at. So I don't like the idea of a doctor. A lot of doctors out there are anti-gun. A lot of doctors out there are pushing an agenda, right?
Absolutely.
Look at Kaiser and their questionnaire for kids. Does mommy and daddy own a gun?
Yes.
Where do they keep it? Have you ever seen it? Right? A doctor just saying and sending a letter to the state saying this person should not. I have a major problem with that. It violates their constitutional rights of due process. So I guess my thought on the issue, and I've been giving a lot of thought on this issue lately, is would I be okay with almost a court-like system, and not that I'm for an expansion of government, but just in terms of due process?
Yes.
In order to look, if we're going to strip somebody of their constitutional rights and we're going to imprison them for something that either a crime they committed or for some reason, they have to go through the process.
Absolutely.
Right? The Constitution is very
100%.
clear on that.
Yep.
And so I think, just as I've been thinking about this, so I think I would be okay if there were some form of process like that.
But my worry about that is I do work with criminal attorneys. One of the things I do is I consult with criminal attorneys. And here's the problem. When you're arrested, there is no such thing as innocent until proven guilty. That does not exist. If people see you...
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
See, I was waiting.
Stop.
I was waiting for that.
Stop. Stop. Holy Stop.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
that was very hard to contain in a face-to-face interview.
I know. But
by the way.
But you have to be kind, considerate.
Yes, and look, so I kind of agree with them to a certain point on one end, right? Hey, once you've paid your debt to society, your debt's paid, why do you continue to lose certain constitutional rights? That is a great argument, and that is one I can absolutely see that side of, correct? Hey, yes, you did something wrong, and you lost your freedom, you went to prison, your sentence is up, your debt is paid. If your debt is paid, your debt is paid. It's either paid or it's not. And I think there is an intelligent argument that can be made for the restoration of all rights once a debt is paid. We don't need to debate that here and now because I see both sides on that issue 100%.
And that doesn't even address parole.
That doesn't even address
which
parole.
Which is a huge issue.
Yes. But when somebody's arrested, they are absolutely presumed innocent. I know of several people that have gone free because of juries and because of the rules and so forth that are set up that favor, in a lot of cases, the defense, because our society would much rather let 10 guilty people go than imprison one innocent person.
Well, and we're also speaking in terms of California. In California, you have to fucking work hard, really hard, to go to prison.
Yes, you do.
I mean, it's just because the system, at least in California, from Sacramento, tries at every level to get you the hell out of it.
It does. But even throughout the country, our national criminal justice system is set up where there is a presumption of innocence, from jury instructions to the proof that is required, the probable cause required to make an arrest, the proof beyond a reasonable doubt in a jury trial, the rules of evidence that are in place. All of these things are set up, and they favor, in my opinion, they favor the defense. Again, because the concept is we would rather let 10 guilty people go than imprison one innocent.
Yes, and we do not have Napoleonic law in the United States.
Correct. Not yet. Anyways, go ahead.
In that box, you're guilty. You have to prove your innocence. Legally, that is not true. Legally, every person is innocent to proven guilty. In reality, that's never true. Everyone is guilty in the jury's eyes. So I can't have it be a jury. Because here's the problem. If it's a jury, I'm going to think...
I'm sorry, I can't let that go either. In the jury, especially in California, in leftist-leaning states, that's a false premise. The jury... all you need to do is get a good defense. Remember, all you need is one person not to vote guilty. That's predicated upon our system. So I'm sorry, I just had to weigh in on that.
What if I'm wrong and he kills somebody and I'm putting him in jail? I can't have a bureaucrat do it because if a bureaucrat's responsible,
right.
What does he say? In jail. This is why I'm against all lists. No-fly lists, I'm against all lists because a bureaucrat has to put you on a list. And if I'm not sure, you're on that list.
So what about a judge? If evidence is presented for, I mean, that's the standard for a search warrant, right? If somebody wants, if the government wants a search warrant to get into private house, right, the most sacred ground in our country, I would argue, they have to go and show probable cause to a judge who then says, yes, government, you can go ahead and do this.
Again,
what
in
about
theory, I
like
like it, but in reality, judges say yes to warrants all the time.
They do.
They know which ones are. They rubber stamp judges all the time. FISA
corollary, there are lots of judges that I'm aware of personally who say no all the time as well. Guess what? It all means out.
Courts are a joke. They're every time yes. So theoretically great. In practice, I'm worried about that too. In my eyes, there has to be some kind of criteria that isn't somehow neutral. And that's not easy. I wish I had an answer for you. I really don't have the right answer, but I have a lot of fears. And I'm a libertarian, and I believe in my heart that the country was built based upon the idea that...
And I didn't like that one statement he made. I don't have all the answers, but I have fears. Mr. Sharp, you're running for governor of New York. You better come up with some answers. And if you have a fear...
And they have to be more...
They're going to be looking to you to how to address it because to use a term of an attorney, bare fear alone is not enough. And, sir, if you're running for governor... And I like you. But if you're running for governor, you better have more to talk about on the issue other than your fears and start having some answers. And I gave you some good ones to start out with.
Fear is a poor predication upon which to base law.
Yes, it is. Go ahead, BZ.
Guilty people might go free.
Yes.
As long as innocent people are not imprisoned. So do I want a crazy person to have a gun and kill people? Of course not. But am I prepared to put 1,000 people in jail who shouldn't be in jail to stop that? I'm not. I'm not prepared. As a governor, as a president, as a senator, as a father. And look, I live in New York City, right? 9/11 happened when I was there. So, there's tons of Muslims in my city, right? There's terrorists in my city. There's crazy people in my city. There's 8.5 million people. There's more people in my city than most states. And I'm still saying I'm okay.
And I think it also ties into another part, too. If there are more people who had guns, who exercised their Second Amendment right, when one of those people did decide to go and attempt to commit violence upon a large group of people or a population, there are more people there to stop that act. And
I've never been sure about that.
Well, here's the thing, right?
And here's my issue.
Go ahead.
I've never been sure about that because do I then start a gunfight? Do I then just bring more people? If I'm a bad guy, look, I'm a former Marine.
Okay.
If I'm going to take over some building or something and there's 5 guys with guns, I'm just going to bring 5 Marines and kill them all. So I'm just going to kill more people. It's not going to stop me. I'm going to take their guns and use them to kill more people. So if I'm that bad guy, more people having guns is probably not going to stop me because most people who are doing bad things like that are going to be trained than people who aren't. So I'm not sure it works.
Not if you're talking about the mental health part, though, right?
That part.
Most of those people. Now, if you're talking about a coordinated terrorist attack
that's what I'm talking about.
in the city, look. First
you
of all,
saw what that Marine did to those cops in Texas.
Absolutely,
and he thought it was 2 shooters. It was just one.
And look, we're going to branch into a whole different conversation here about and this is an interesting libertarian point, right? Because law enforcement is not trained to deal with that type of conflict, and yet I know there's a big push to demilitarize the police. And while I agree with that on a certain level, there should also be a push to train police in some of those small unit tactics because those are the ones who are going to be dealing with that coordinated small unit tactic of that terrorist group. And we saw after the Boston Marathon bombing during the arrest phase. And if those guys and gals aren't trained in that, we don't want them rolling through the streets in armored vehicles. 100% agree with that. But if we don't even give them the capability to deal with that, then there's going to be even more destruction upon the population.
If that's the issue, then all you need is 1 or 2 small units that can do that. The average cop does not need to know or deal with that at all.
Even mobilizing those
at
units,
all.
if you look at say, example, a SWAT team,
okay.
Most SWAT teams are not full-time teams in the United States, which means in order to get those folks there to wherever...
See, here's where you're honing in. Then this is where it kind of starts to get interesting.
For that equipment is stored, for them to get geared up, for them to respond to that crisis site. You're talking 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay.
And that's average response time. That is a lot. You being a former Marine, that is a lot of time to have a citizenry under fire, which means those uniformed officers on the street in that patrol car are going to be the first ones responding.
Yep.
And if those standard patrol folks, now granted, they have to be tightly watched, and they have to understand when it's appropriate to use these tactics. But if they don't understand those tactics, they're going to be part of the problem. Because, as you said, they're going to be going up against people with probably superior firepower and probably people who are better trained.
Let me do a couple things here.
Sure.
This is branch. I want the root.
Okay.
And there are 2 things that we have with the root. The first one is homegrown terrorism.
Okay. So I made a hell of a point. And now he's not going to address that point.
He didn't see you going there.
He didn't see me going there.
He doesn't know your background. So because of that, he didn't think that he was going to have to come up with some kind of a defense for that.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think he's thought of it.
No. It was new, and he thinks on his feet.
I bet he's going to think about it now.
Rapidly, but now this is another issue
that
you brought up.
So now he's going to try. But he doesn't answer that question.
No.
He starts going somewhere else. And we're going to go ahead and play through this break right now. Go ahead.
Then foreign terrorism.
Okay.
You want to stop foreign terrorism? Stop bombing people and making terrorists.
Okay.
Just stop. All we're doing is making more terrorists. We're not going to kill our way out of it. And the idea that we're going to kill our way out of it is silly. People believe it. We got to keep bombing terrorists. Dumb. We bombed 8 countries. We've been bombing 8 countries since Bush. Bush, Obama,
We've been
Trump,
fighting terrorists since Washington and Jefferson, since the revolution with
but
Tripoli,
never as
right?
bad as now.
No, never as bad as now.
Never as bad as
but
now.
I'm saying it's not a new problem.
That's correct.
Right.
But it is now, we are really good at it now. I mean, we are making stop bombing people. Walk away. And the problem with walking away is, if we walk away, will they attack us? Probably yes, because we're their best recruiting tool. Right? If we don't bomb them, they're not going to make more terrorists. So they're going to bomb us on purpose to hope we go back.
But in the
If we
meantime,
just stop,
how do we deal with
hold on, I'm
that
going there. I'm
problem?
gonna get there.
Okay.
The first one is just stopping. Just stopping. And over time, terrorists will stop bombing us. They'll bomb someone else, whoever it is. I don't really care.
Okay.
Really? I have a big issue with that. You know me in Islam.
Yeah.
That's my particular viewpoint on that. And I saw your eyebrows go up when he was saying that. So what are you thinking?
Oh no, it's bullshit. 100, hey, look, 100% is bullshit. I told you there were some things I agree with the man on, some things I didn't, and we're getting into an area here where I absolutely didn't agree with him. And
but you were very kind.
No, I was very kind
because that was your job to conduct the interview and let him speak.
Right. But no, it's 100% bull. And I tried to kind of wanted to see, I at least wanted him to acknowledge that we have been fighting Islamic extremists since the founding of our country.
Yeah, that's where Tripoli comes from in the Marine hymn that he knows.
Yes, and he did. He acknowledged it. And he said, not to this, yes, they didn't bring down the fucking Twin Towers back in 78. They didn't. But we were still fighting them. So I wanted him to at least acknowledge that, and I tried to bring it back, right?
Yes.
Okay, so how do we? I'm getting there. Well, okay, we'll get there. Let's see what you have to say.
Okay.
It's not us. That's number one. The second thing is homegrown terrorists. How do you stop homegrown terrorists? Prosperity. Prosperity is the answer.
Okay. Yeah, this is why I love doing live radio. I'm looking at you over there, and he just said prosperity.
Yes.
What do we know from UK terrorists, Muslims? They're highly educated, highly motivated.
And prosperous.
And they are prosperous because they're in the UK and they're homegrown. That's where the bulk of the terrorists have come from. In France, in the UK, portions of Denmark, etc. I'm not buying this. I'm just not buying this.
I'm not either, and this is why. Look, I can actually react this way. Look, the guy was, again, I keep saying it, great interview, nice man. In this realm, I disagree with him.
No doubt at all.
If people are happier, if they have a future, they don't become terrorists. If we do what we talked about earlier about the idea of dealing with mental health, they don't become. The common denominator between all homegrown terrorism is not religion. It's
Oh.
Well, he was talking about Elf, and he was talking about some of those other.
I'm not
groups.
sure he was. Not sure he was. I think he's throwing Islam in there as well. I think he's lumping a lot of stuff together. Now, if you're talking about the
homegrown terrorism includes those groups, right?
Well, yeah, but also you could lump McVeigh in there.
Yes, you can
as well.
Yeah, not religious.
No,
see, so he's right.
Yeah, that's good God.
Look, maybe he's right. Go on.
But that's why we have this radio show, damn it.
Unhappiness, and I blame the American government for my unhappiness. That's the common denominator. If people would stop blaming the American government for their unhappiness, domestic terrorism goes away. That's not easy to do. That is not easy to do. But that should be our focus. Our focus should be on getting the American government out of our lives so that people don't think it's the reason why we're failing. Allowing people to be freer and happier so they don't believe it's the reason why we're failing. Stop bombing other countries to give people these. Look, we killed one of the ISIS's best recruiters, 4 or 5 years ago. He's still recruiting. He's dead. The internet, he still recruits. Mm-hmm. We can't stop this. Let's touch the root, not the branches. With all of that in mind, that means think about how often terrorism has been stopped. How's it been stopped? Same answer every time. Vigilant citizenry. If the citizens are vigilant, they call the right people. I know New York City, we stopped 2 terrorist attacks. Who stopped them? Muslims who were in Times Square, saw the attacks with the bombs in it, and called somebody. Why? Because that guy's got a house, he's got a family, he's got a future, he's got hope. America is hope for him. He doesn't want to go back to Morocco or go back to Algeria. He wants to stay in New York City. And if that guy screws up, he's messing up for everybody. He calls him out. If we have prosperity, if we have freedom in our country, we have less terrorists. Any terrorist assault that's going to happen always requires local support. That's how it works. It requires local support. The more prosperity we have, the less local support they have, the less terrorism we'll have. Even with everything I just said, how often does terrorism happen in our country? Once every 6 months? Throughout 330 million people. So I now want to train 900,000 law enforcement people for one attack every 6 months? No.
Okay.
The average cop deals with the guy who's selling cigarettes on the street, deals with the guy who's speeding. Why do I want a SWAT team guy doing that? No. I will take the damage again for the one attack every 6 months over having 900,000 stormtroopers in my city, in my town, in my country. I don't want that. I don't want the SS in my. I don't want the Gestapo in my country. I don't want it. I will take that.
And I don't think that a lot of those officers want to necessarily be the Gestapo or
yes,
stormtroopers.
There's my other
either,
point.
Right?
They don't either.
They
of
don't.
Course not.
But do we have to give them the tools to be able to act in that worst case scenario? Not that they're riding around in armored vehicles and fully.
Right back to you, Larry. Right back to you, baby.
Yep.
Yeah, let's see what you got to say.
Yep.
Geared up. That's not my art. That is not what I'm saying, because I agree. There's a place for a tactical team, and it should not be roving the streets. But I think that the standard patrol officer should be trained at least in certain small unit tactics, not to take over the citizenry. And I understand the slippery slope there.
Yes,
right?
that's my word.
I guess. He said, I guess.
Well, the other thing is that this to him, it sort of borders on minutia. This is stuff that I don't think he's thought about very much. And number two, to aid his argument, it's not stuff that enables his argument. So he's not very interested in really getting into depth with that particular issue. And you brought that up, and you showed that to him.
Yes. And he finally said, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. You know what that means? Argument ceded for that point.
Yes.
Understand the slippery slope. But they are going to be the ones dealing.
You said slope.
With that one. And for me personally, I think, while I understand your concerns, I would rather have just those folks in a regular uniform, not geared up to the nines, looking to go into battle on every traffic stop. I don't want to be pulled over and to have an AR-15 pointed in my face.
But that's happening already. Right? Do you see how aggressive police are already?
Okay, what I think he's mentioning is the Minneapolis shooting of the Australian female. I think that's what he's referring to.
Yes.
That's something entirely separate.
Different.
That's one of the most egregious examples that he could think of, but it was fresh on his mind because at that time of the interview, it had just occurred.
Yep.
Last couple of shootings that we saw on video, oh my God. I mean, they're so aggressive. Their first answer is drawing the gun? That's your first answer? What is wrong with police in this case? They're trained poorly. We are doing a bad job. Look, my father was in law enforcement. I'm not anti-cop at all. But the training is terrible. If they're taught pull a gun first, who's training them?
I have to wonder, and this is getting an interesting discussion. I had NYPD written down here. I have to wonder with the society and the way society as a whole views law enforcement now. The fact that ambush killings on law enforcement is up tremendously right now, and I mean, just even in your city.
Yes.
And I have to wonder how much of that is fear.
Of course.
Being in the military, how
Absolutely.
many guys did you see that bare fear would respond to something
100%.
as opposed to using mines?
And that's my point. If you're a cop and you're that afraid, why are you a cop? But I'll go one step further.
Paying benefits.
Which is the wrong reason to be a cop.
100% agree.
Now,
absolutely.
But not just that. I can't just blame the foot cop, right? That's a problem. But he should have leaders who see that and go, wow, my guys are skittish. I have a problem.
Absolutely.
How do you get around that? Better training. Better scenario training. The military teaches you scenario training.
Yep.
More of that, and they won't be afraid, and they won't draw their weapon right away. So I don't want that foot cop to actually pull his weapon. That's bad. But then there's leadership on top who should know that and go, wow, my guys were untrained. I've got to do something about this.
Yeah.
Let me take action.
Look, there's a time and a place to draw that weapon.
100%.
There's a time and a place not to draw that
Absolutely.
weapon, right?
And it shouldn't be when you...
And I'm going to agree with him on law enforcement and training. Training is
hell yes.
Training is huge. I don't think, like you said, he's thought about the minutia because he's never seen it, thought about it, been there. But the training is a big deal. And he brought up leadership, which is also a big deal.
A massive
because
deal. We saw that in Berkeley, did we not?
Yes,
the
we
lack
did.
of leadership. All
Yes.
the people that are listening, the immediate, like say, the frontline supervisors who are listening to the wrong people.
Yes.
But the caveat that you and I both know is, what's the first thing cut from a police department, any law enforcement agency, during a tight budget time? And the answer is?
Training.
Training.
Yep, training.
happen to see a woman on the corner and you pull your weapon, or a guy in a car who announces, "Hi, officer, I have a weapon and a license." That is the wrong time to pull your weapon. It just is.
And so how do you balance that? I think this is a big issue right now in law enforcement. You have to balance the desire in the street level officer to want to engage the community.
Yep.
Because right now I think there's a huge separation. There's
100%.
a lot of movements out there on both sides, right?
Yep.
On one side it's totally anti, and as a result of that you have men and women in blue kind of retreating into this old brotherhood kind of,
Absolutely.
and that's bad for society also,
100%.
right? So we have to get the community and law enforcement engaged to work together, but also give the officers the training they need to be able to do their job and save lives when necessary.
Here's the hard part, and that is, I'm not in law enforcement, but if I was, I could understand how someone could feel under siege. I get that, which makes you more afraid and more angry. Leadership
Matters.
That's the answer.
Yep.
You have to have leaders who go, guys, I know we're under siege, you're right, but we're not going to fight our way out of it. We can't make the civilian population our enemy.
Right.
We have to focus on our training, take those tomatoes to the face, theoretically, those tomatoes to the face for now, until we've shown them that we are trained, that we are better, that we are good. At the same time, civilian leadership, the mayors, right, the governors, the Congress people, the city council, tell the civilian population, guys, we're doing things now to fix the police force. Stop being jerks about it. I know they were bad. I know bad things happen, but they're part of our community also.
And it's not all of them.
Give us a chance to repair this.
Yeah. Look,
So, yeah.
Bad eggs in every segment of the population.
Yes.
Law enforcement certainly no different.
Absolutely.
Do I think the vast majority of them are good? Absolutely, I believe
Yes,
that.
I think you're right.
believe the vast majority of them are good
I agree.
and are there for the right reasons. Not all of them.
Yep.
Right? Knuckleheads in all of them, and there's some that shouldn't be there because perhaps they don't have the level of testicular fortitude that perhaps they should, right? They're afraid
But
of everything.
training
as
can
a
help
result.
that.
I 100% agree with that.
Right? I mean, the Marine
Scenario-based
Corps
training.
makes men out of some very unmanly people.
Yeah.
Right? And that's because of training.
Absolutely.
So leadership. I can't say it enough. That's the answer. If police forces are led appropriately, and one of the best ones out there is the Boston Police Force. It's one of the best. And it's because of their leadership, not because they happen to have the right people. No, good leadership with a good environment makes better cops.
Do you realize that you're from New York, a Yankee fan, and you just gave props to Boston?
Yes,
People
only the
who
police
love
force.
Red Sox. You
Not
understand
the-
what you just
not
did,
the
right?
baseball team at all. No, just the police force.
I'll
Look,
have you know,
I can give kudos to whoever I need to.
I'm very happy that my partner's not in this interview right now because he's from Boston and he's a huge Red Sox fan and he's walking over here right now.
Yeah, I
Don't
knew
make eye
I didn't
contact.
like him. I knew there was something about him I didn't
Don't
like.
make eye
That's what it
contact
was.
with him.
That's what it was. Yes, knew there was something about him I didn't like. That's what it was.
And there's the sackheads coming out.
Hit the mute button. Mr. Sharp, it has been an absolute pleasure
thank you.
speaking with you, sir. It really has.
All right, so that was Larry Sharp, Libertarian gubernatorial candidate for the state of New York, and his interview at Freedom Fest. And you can see there where we disagreed on some things, but still he had a lucid argument.
Listen, when you make arguments like he does, I appreciate, and I'll listen to someone like him all damn day long.
Yes.
Because it's not, I hate you, you're just wrong. No, he again and again and again, he comes back with an argument predicated upon his philosophy and his belief system. And he makes good, cogent arguments.
He does. So look,
I may disagree.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he speaks incredibly well.
And I think his heart's in the right place.
It is.
I really do.
I fervently believe that.
Absolutely. So let's take a vote here. Should we go to commercial? I say no. And since Sean's not here to vote against me.
Right, he doesn't count.
He doesn't get it. And that would split it anyways, and then it would be thrown to you. So no, we're going to make a command decision here. We're going to keep rolling because I really want our audience to listen to the interview we had with Congressman Massey.
You might want to reintroduce him, who he is, etc., and then we just give me a hand signal and we're rolling.
So Tom Massey is the congressman out of Kentucky. He is part of the Freedom Caucus. He is the man who, if you remember this
is great.
When Paul Ryan, when the new came in and it was speakership was up again, and Paul Ryan was getting voted in, he's the one who stood up and said something to the effect of, in keeping with the theme of draining the swamp, I vote for Congressman Webb. I think did not vote for Paul Ryan.
Nope, the only one.
The only Republican to not vote for Paul Ryan. So if you remember that story, that's Congressman Tom Massey.
This is the dude.
This is the guy, and we had an interview with him, and he is such a nice man, a very nice, very gracious, good interview. We're going to play it in its entirety, and then we're going to toss it to BZ for some comments. Because
listen, we'll be almost the show will be very close.
Yeah, it'll be close. But we'll have time for a little bit of comments. But I really think you can get some good information from this. A very, very good interview, very interesting perspective. And what's funny is the fact that he is a Republican in there, I believe, for the right reasons, bucking he's pissing everybody off over there, which I think is great.
Oh, it's wonderful.
It's great because that's what his constituents sent him there to do. And that's what he's doing. So please enjoy this interview.
The final thing, he gives you insight here in this interview as to how shite really works
in D.C.
In D.C.
Yep.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And welcome to another edition of SHR Media Network here, live from Freedom Fest 2017, Las Vegas, Nevada. I am your host, Sackhead Clint. Seated to my right, Sackhead Shaun.
Good afternoon, sir.
Sitting behind us is bloviating Zeppelin himself, and we have an honor and a privilege to meet with one of my favorite members of Congress. Look, we're an opinion show. I don't have to be fair here.
We can do whatever we want. It's ours.
Yeah. Congressman Massey, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, thank you for having me on.
No, thank you for being here with us. We really appreciate it. How have you been?
Well, it's great. This is my first Freedom Fest.
Okay.
I do Freedom everywhere I go, but I've never been here to Vegas to the Freedom Fest. The last couple years, there was a presidential race, if you didn't notice, and so
somebody mentioned that earlier today.
Did we miss that?
Yeah,
I don't know how we missed that.
There were a lot of senators out here jockeying for position in a primary, so I didn't come to it. This year, I thought, you know what, I'm going to go see what a Freedom Fest is when it's not corrupted by a presidential primary.
What do you think?
It's just great. It's great. I am wandering the booths here, not as a congressman, but just as somebody who is in awe of all of the other compatriots in the fight for freedom that we have here. It's just amazing, the number of people. I didn't realize it was going to be this big.
I said my first year that we showed up here, it's amazing how the libertarians and conservatives can really, and I hate to separate them, but for the sake of argument, really blend together well. And the amount of conversations that you hear, even in the hallways between random people, to try to solve some of the places that they disagree on.
Yeah.
And it is so, I don't even know what the word is, polite and kind, but it's also successful, right? There's no arguing, there's no screaming, there's no you get at work every day.
Yeah. Well, thoughtful conversation, right?
Yes.
We just had a thoughtful conversation. I was on a panel with former Congressman Bob Barr and with Mike Lee, Senator Mike Lee, and we were talking about criminal justice reform, sentencing reform, and Jason Pye from FreedomWorks was moderating it. But we took questions from the crowd, and they were all thoughtful and polite.
It was a great event. They held it in a room that held, I don't know, 300 or 400 people, and there was standing room only.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that tells you, I mean, even conservatives, well, especially conservatives, realize that criminal justice reform is a conservative issue. I mean, if you're filling up all the jails with people that haven't committed real crimes or haven't committed crimes that really require, I call it socialism with restrained mobility, when you lock people up, pay for their health care,
right,
and just don't let them out. Anyways, when you fill up all those beds, socialism with restrained mobility.
I'm gonna have to.
I love that. We have it in there. Yeah.
Wait till we get to healthcare, because I have one for him then.
Well, when you fill up all those beds with nonviolent offenders, then you're letting the violent offenders walk, and that's a problem. So if you want to be tough on crime, then you got to really think hard about who you're going to lock up and which ones need to be locked up.
Well, and absolutely, you start looking at that long-term goal, right? We've talked about this in relation to the Second Amendment and, white-collar felons who end up losing Second Amendment rights. And you and I have gone back and forth about this a lot.
We have. It's actually interesting because we have our debate consists of once somebody has paid for their crime, and their freedoms in theory should be, or their liberties should be restored since their debt has been paid. Where does that end? Why does that not extend to voting? Why does that not extend to Second Amendment, particularly if we're talking about...
I agree with you. Whether it's a driver's license or the right to keep and bear arms or the right to vote, once you're out of jail, you should have all those. And just from a pragmatic standpoint, the liberal argument for gun control is that criminals will obey the law.
Right. Midas side alignment and trigger pull, just to be clear.
Yeah,
that's my definition.
That's my definition of gun control too. Staying on the target. But and the premise of keeping somebody from owning a gun after they get out of jail or out of prison fails that basic, liberal premise.
Absolutely.
It's the same failure, because if you are not reformed, if you are not worthy of or should have the right to have a gun, well, you can still get one anyway. Right.
We've talked about that time and again.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who get it the easiest and the cheapest often. $200 out of a trunk on the side of the road, and they know who to see to get it.
What is it? 93%, less than 1% of crime guns used come out of gun controls or from lawfully purchased weapons.
Right.
Yeah.
They are somehow obtained illegally, which the criminal by nature has a tendency to not want to follow laws anyhow.
Right.
So you're giving them a lot of credit at that point to say, well, hey, even though you've broken into 22 houses and you've been arrested 100 times, we don't think that you're going to carry a gun illegally, because that's the line.
Well, listen, that's why I've introduced a bill to eliminate gun-free school zones, right?
Yep.
Because gun-free zones don't work. You think a criminal is going to read the sign and say, oh, let me go back to the car.
Yeah.
Put the piece.
I got to put this in the trunk.
Yeah.
1,000 yards, baby. 1,000 yards.
That's right. That's not going to happen. And so what it does, only people who aren't carrying a gun are law-abiding citizens at that point. So that's why I introduced a bill to get rid of the Gun-Free School Zone Act, which, by the way, has already been struck down by the Supreme Court once. And then Congress tweaked it and passed it again. I still think it's unconstitutional.
They're so good at that.
It is. It is unconstitutional.
Of course it is.
That's public property. The Second Amendment protects. So one of my arguments is that the Second Amendment being a federal issue, the states should not be able to control, regulate that at all, particularly since the Constitution talks about here are the powers of the federal government, very limited in scope, and the states can pretty much do whatever is in the Constitution that says that doesn't prohibit them from doing it, or powers specifically reserved to the federal government.
Provide more rights, not less.
The Second Amendment is specifically reserved to the federal government. Mm-hmm. So why is it okay for the states to restrict that? And I understand case law, and we can have a discussion about case law and the downfall of the beginning of the downfall of our justice system with when we started going to case law interpretation of things.
Well, I mean, until the 14th Amendment, and then something later on called the Incorporation Doctrine, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights didn't really apply to the states. I mean, this is in the last 100 years. And they started with other aspects of the Bill of Rights. Eventually, everything has now been incorporated such that the states, by case law, are subject to the Bill of Law or Bill of Rights. Now, there are some of us who think if you live in a stupid state that has stupid laws, well, that's your fault. You
California.
like stupid people.
Sorry, I was
Massachusetts.
I'm sorry. You guys are saying that. I'm talking about a
that's us
hypothetical
strictly, sir.
state
Oh, no.
that might exist.
Oh, so an imaginary state
Yes.
that may exist.
Could
We'll just call it
exist in the
Taxachusetts for fun.
Yeah.
Just
Right.
for fun. Okay.
Right.
So, but anyways, it's a fair debate to have whether states can do their own thing. I always tell people when I campaigned, I'm pro-life, pro-gun, and pro-constitution in that order, which is a little bit dangerous, but
Well, it protects on different levels. It depends on how you want to go with
Yes.
that, right? You can
Yeah.
see where the importance lies in some levels.
But listen, and I think you're talking about that in the context maybe of reciprocity, where if you are allowed to carry a concealed weapon in your own state, shouldn't you be allowed to carry in another state, just like you have a driver's license? Shouldn't they have to honor your driver's license in another state?
Yes.
And it's a fair debate, but rather than wade into that debate on national reciprocity, I introduced a bill that isn't open to debate, and that is the D.C. Personal Protection Reciprocity Act. What my bill says, and it's very limited, it's very incremental, but listen, that's how they've taken our gun rights.
Absolutely.
They have incrementally, if they can take you down from a 30-round magazine to a 15-round magazine, they'll do it in a heartbeat.
Down to 7 in New York.
Yeah.
So mine is an incremental bill, but what it does is says that the District of Columbia has to recognize your concealed carry permit from any state, from all the 50 states. Now, it's not just for congressmen. I know there are a lot of people or politicians after the shooting that came out and said congressmen should be able to carry anywhere. The problem with doing that is once you let the lawmakers have their Second Amendment rights restored, their motivation or their imperative diminishes to restore your
you.
Second Amendment rights.
Thank you very much.
And I've even got this problem in Congress. Getting my bill to the floor isn't as important to Paul Ryan and Kevin McCarthy because they have bodyguards.
Yeah.
Amazing how that happens. huh?
Provided to you by provided to them by you, the taxpayer. So they're not, shall I say, as they don't feel this is as urgent as I do because I'm a rank and file congressman. And again, I'm not asking just for my right to carry a gun in D.C. because, number one, pragmatically, I understand I'm the target. My staff, frankly, is the one who is most likely to respond quicker than me. I'm usually distracted and in a debate or a conversation with somebody.
Right.
So I would want my staff to be able to carry. But more importantly, I represent 746,000 people in Kentucky. When they come to visit me in the nation's capital, they shouldn't have to put their whole family at risk.
Well, it's always
Absolutely.
astounded me that the nation's capital, where all of our most important documents are kept and all of our rights are put onto paper and held. Obviously, that's not where they exist, but that's where everything that is supposed to be an example of what this country is about, and our Second Amendment right is not recognized.
Well, listen, and I'm pulling out my Constitution here. You guys could see it. But
We do. Well, hang on. We verify that the congressman is in fact pulling out a copy of the Constitution
Every
that he
reason.
carries on his person.
That's right.
His personal. It's highlighted and dog-eared.
It
for
is
the record.
dog-eared.
It is. It is.
But what the Constitution says is that all of the legislation for the federal city is reserved to Congress, not to some state legislature.
Yes.
And this is why we avoid the 10th Amendment argument or debate that there might be on national reciprocity, because Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House, which are essentially the legislature and the governor, if you will, of Washington, D.C. The Founding Fathers wanted it to be this way because they thought that if you put this one city under the jurisdiction of any state, then that legislature would have so much power over the rest of the country. And they also might create an environment where it's not safe for all the legislators from the various states and their constituents to come and visit. This is the exact reason this Second Amendment and allowing people to carry in Washington, D.C.
is the exact reason that the Founding Fathers left those decisions up to us, not the City Council of Washington, D.C., in the Constitution.
It's weird, sir. It's almost like the Founding Fathers knew what the hell they were doing. I keep
it?
saying this time and again, right? As different things come up throughout our country, it's like, gosh, if only there was a group of people in our past who set up framework in order for... Hold on, I get a book.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Listen. Put Howard Zinn down for a moment, okay? Read this one. It's much shorter, and it's easier to understand.
Way easier
Actually
to
makes
understand.
sense.
So, obviously, the bill's been put forth. You have 81 co-sponsors, I believe you said?
82. Breaking news, 82.
Just another one came in. 82 co-sponsors.
Outstanding.
Congratulations.
And listen, 3 years ago, I was able, using some crafty parliamentary voodoo, to get an amendment offered on the floor of the House of Representatives. I had been there 2 years. No, we had never even had a gun vote. Nothing on the Second Amendment. And by the way, we haven't had a vote on the Second Amendment since I forced this vote. I got an amendment to the bill that funds Washington, D.C. that said none of the money we're going to provide here is going to be used to enforce gun control in Washington, D.C. I mean, this would have knocked down every gun law in Washington, D.C. The Democrats came to me during the debate and said, listen, we're going to let this pass on a voice vote. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. Why would they do that? They wanted to strip it out later. They would decide to fight another day. But they didn't want any of their members on the record. So, sure enough, my amendment passes on a voice vote, and somebody angrily demands a recorded vote, and that person was me. Like, even though it passed, right? They were expecting me to sit down and be content.
Outstanding.
I said, no, I object. I demand a recorded vote. When the dust settled, 20 Democrats voted to defund Washington, D.C.'s gun control laws.
Wow.
The media didn't really report on this, and this was 3 summers ago. This bill that I have offered is actually far less broad than that amendment was. I am certain Democrats will vote for this if I can get Paul Ryan to bring it to the floor.
Well, there's a lot of things that Paul Ryan needs to bring to the floor that we're having trouble getting there right now.
So
you put your finger on it. Let me just say quickly, we're 7 months into the Trump administration, into controlling all the levers of power in Washington, D.C., and we have failed to do what we promised the American people, not because the votes failed, but because we failed to vote, right? We haven't voted on border security. We haven't voted on tax reform. We haven't voted on a true repeal of Obamacare.
Yeah.
How do you know this stuff's going to fail unless you vote for it?
And look, I hate to say it, but this could potentially, this failure to act on anything could cost the Republican Party the House and the Senate by 2020.
It easily could. It could happen in 2018 in the House, because in the Senate, you only have a third of the senators up for re-election in 2018.
But I'm talking 2020.
Right. Yes. The Senate could switch over by then,
Yes.
but the House could switch in 2018.
Yes, it could.
Because, and this is the way the Founding Fathers wanted it,
Yep.
every single member of the House is up for election in 2018.
Yep,
Well,
absolutely.
and every day that we sit and do not, by we, Congress sits and does nothing, is another day that we will not have that majority potentially to pass these ridiculously important things that the Republicans have been yelling for years. Give us the power and we will do this. Give us the presidency and we will do this. We will get it done. We will get it done. We will get it done. And then when folks like yourself are like, "Hey, it's time to get it done," they're like, "Well, not yet."
And some of the things we hear is, well, then why are we gonna keep them in power?
Right.
You know, we'll try somebody else again.
That is the tone that we have heard here this week, time and again. Why would I give them power again? They've done this before, and they're doing it again.
Yeah.
Well, I'm probably not doing myself a service to relitigate what I'm about to say, but on January 3rd of 2017, there was a vote to decide who would be Speaker of the House. And every Republican except for me voted for Paul Ryan. I was the only one that didn't vote for Paul Ryan. I voted for Daniel Webster, a Republican from Florida. Mm-hmm. And I tweeted, "America votes for change. The House votes for Paul Ryan."
That's
and
very
I
effective.
remember that.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I remember that tweet.
Unfortunately,
and
so
the subsequent firestorm.
Yes.
Yes.
A little bit of one. Just a little bit of one. But that's what you get for speaking against the grain, right?
But,
and
I'm sorry, Sean. Look, here's why that struck a chord when you did that. Because the other people that voted for Paul Ryan did so because they were. It's a power thing, in my opinion, right? It's
Yes.
retention of power. It's familiarity. I think that you, sir, stood up because you recognized that you're there to do a job, and you are an instrument of the people and a representative of the people, and you take that very seriously, I believe, which is why when you sat down, I wasn't blowing smoke. I sincerely meant you are definitely one of my favorite people in Congress. And so that took courage, and I want to say thank you as an American for doing that, and I hope you keep up the good fight, and I think you will. But that's exactly why people are frustrated with the quote-unquote career politicians that are there.
Well, we had to stand up and announce who we were voting for Speaker. And I stood up and I said, to drain the swamp, Daniel Webster. And I invoked one of Trump's campaign promises, President Trump's campaign promises, maybe to give me a little protection there when I said when I didn't say Paul Ryan, when Paul Ryan wasn't the next thing that came out of my mouth. But look, a lot of people were worried about keeping their committee assignments, getting their legislation to the floor. A lot of promises were made. I won't say palms were greased in the sense that money went into people's pockets and their bank accounts, but it went into their campaign accounts. And
pork ended up in barrels to go in bills, and all the other things that we've seen out of Congress for years that frustrates people every single day.
Because Paul Ryan did something that even John Boehner was never bold enough to do. He withheld all the committee assignments until after he was elected. That normally happens in December before the Speaker vote. And Speaker Ryan held all of those out until January, which is one of the reasons, frankly, we got off to such a slow start. You can't have committees meet
when there's no committee members.
There's no committee members, and there's no chairman of committees. And that was pretty shrewd politically. It's how he got a nearly unanimous vote.
All but one.
All
from
but
what
one.
I've heard.
All but one.
That's right.
Yeah, one brave American. So
just standing up.
A couple things I think that, and I appreciate your time, but a couple things I wanted to touch on, if you can. Number one, healthcare. That's kind of the big elephant in the room right now, and everybody where we at. There's 3 senators, Republican senators, didn't even want to vote for a straight repeal.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
And there's probably more than that. Republicans, they're just sort of hiding out.
They're not being forced to say it yet.
Yeah, the ones who are saying that are trying to say that so they'll never have to vote. If they can bluff and say, we ain't voting to do what we did 2 years ago, then maybe the majority leader will have mercy on them and not make them vote. But here's some logic, and I know I shouldn't be applying this to Congress, but I will. I'm going to try.
But this is what makes you different.
Yeah, exactly.
If you stand up and say, I'm not voting for repeal unless we have a replacement, what you're saying is that you're not content replacing Obamacare with what we had before.
Right.
Which is to say you think Obamacare is better than what we had before. You don't want to go back to what we had before.
Yes.
You think Obamacare is better? Well, then you should have voted for it, and maybe you should have been registered as a Democrat.
Absolutely.
One of the things that, as soon as, and you know as well as I do, one of the things that Congress could do separately from a complete repeal or whatever is, much like we did with the insurance company a couple years ago, is start selling insurance across state lines. That's something that Congress has the right to regulate without doing an entire health care bill.
Authority.
You could get that done in one vote, out of the way, completely part and parcel, and costs will start going down right away.
There's so many things we could do that are 80% issues. What Democrat is going to vote against being able to sell insurance across state lines?
Nancy Pelosi.
Well,
sorry, you asked the
Maxine
question,
Waters.
so I just
Maxine Waters.
We could do that. We could do that. Here, this is the other thing, and again, this may get into interstate commerce. But what about requiring that hospitals tell you the price of an MRI or the price to get your bone reset or something, or the average price,
right?
Or what it costs to stay in the hospital a night and how many nights you could expect to stay there. If you don't know the price, you can't shop.
Right.
Absolutely.
And as soon as you have people shopping, then prices will go down because the price of LASIK eye surgery has gone down every year since it was invented. because on average, people call and get 3 or 4 price quotes before they go get it done.
Well, now they advertise the price all over the place.
Yeah.
$500 an eye,
coupons in my
$300.
Penny Saver.
I get them all the time, right?
Yeah,
the guy in the van that
absolutely.
does the laser surgery. I'm
So-
looking forward to it.
So I'm just waiting for the commercials that say, "Come in and get your colonoscopy now." Super
Sean,
low
sit down.
price.
Stop,
He's just
stop,
kidding.
$1,200 if you act now.
$1,200 now.
Christmas
Special colonoscopy.
But you will. I mean, it sounds
We'll wear
ridiculous.
the Santa hat for you.
Yeah.
But common procedures will be advertised, right?
Yes.
If it's something that most people are going to have to get done at some point, there will be advertisements for what the price is, because you see them advertising LASIK. Like you
Well,
said.
what about going to just a straight cash and carry system?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, scrap it all together.
I got to throw this in before you jump off healthcare, though.
Good.
If you ever push the interstate sales across lines, please use this. I've been
Okay.
working on this all week. If you make it portable, you make it affordable.
If you make it portable, you make it affordable.
I'm just saying, you can use. Everyone else, I told that there's patent pending. You can use that, though.
All right.
just saying.
I will use it then.
I know our time is getting short, so I want to touch on one other topic. If I get North Korea.
North Korea. Okay. So what do we need to do there? We need to make sure our missile defense works. You know,
How do you do that when the South Korean president doesn't
Kicks
want
out
the
half
full
the THAAD
thing? Yeah.
system.
Well, that system was for them, and that's up to them. Like, I want the one in Hawaii to work. I want the one in Alaska to work. Right?
Correct.
Can you just come talk to us every week, please? I love this. I absolutely love how candid you are right now.
It's their choice, right?
Absolutely. It
Yeah,
absolutely
absolutely.
is. The problem is, and I've said this before, we should have said, fine, if you're not going to take the entire missile system, we're removing all of our troops for their safety.
Right.
We're not going to keep them on the DMZ. That's on you now, only because we have to protect their interests.
Well, frankly, honestly, and this is, you talked about the convergence of libertarians and conservatives here. I don't think we should have so many troops in so many different countries deployed around the world. Do you know we're debating a budget right now that's going to have $43 billion in it for Afghanistan next year? That is as much as Germany or France or Great Britain spend on their entire military. We are going to spend in Afghanistan in the 17th year of the war.
Yeah.
In 2 years, we're going to have 18-year-olds deploying to Afghanistan that were born after that war started. It's gone on longer than Vietnam. So, I know this is a stretch from North Korea, but in general, I don't think we should have 30,000 troops in North Korea or 30,000 troops in Japan, or who knows how many troops $43 million buys in Afghanistan. But we need end games here, and we need other countries to defend themselves.
So what's the end game in North Korea? I mean, I understand what the end game is in North Korea, but what is, and I know you can't speak specifically on strategies and certain things that obviously as a member you can't discuss, but what is Congress looking at in terms of what we can do? I know you talked about the missile defense system, making sure that's operational up to speed in Hawaii and Alaska, and of course the government in Hawaii, they push back a little bit on that too. But what else can you tell us about North Korea in terms of what's the concern in Congress other than the obvious?
You have a screwball
Something's
with
gotta be
potentially a
done.
nuclear weapon.
Yeah, something's got to be done.
Well,
Even the libertarians are saying something's got to be done.
A preemptive strike, in my opinion, we should not do. We should not attack North Korea preemptively, and here's why. Regardless of whether they got missiles or not, they've got a pile of artillery, all aimed at Seoul,
Yep.
and it's all within range, and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, innocent people, will die if the instant we engage North Korea in military action. So if it escalates immediately to an all-out war. Their leader, he's a self-preservationist. Okay, he's evil, but he's also calculating, and that's a trait of most evil people.
I was
Yes,
going to say, we've
absolutely.
seen that time and again throughout history.
That's why most people don't know this, but before he launches a missile, there's actually a hotline that any country is supposed to call to say, hey, we're launching a missile. This isn't a war. This is a test. He still calls the hotline.
Oh, he does?
Yeah. Why does he do this? Now, I've learned this because I'm in Congress. He does this because he doesn't want us to think he just started a war. Because the instant he does start a war,
He knows.
he's off the map. I mean, he may take out Seoul, but he's not going to reach us, and they're going to be powder.
Well, and a couple other things, and I'm just leave a couple comments on this. First of all, I believe that unlike his father, he actually believes half the hype. His father knew it was all lies. that the grandfather created. I believe on some level he's delusional enough to believe some of that hype is real for some reason. I also question whether or not the people in the outer circles, if he calls and says, hey, artillery sold now, are actually going to follow through.
They're not going to want to get killed strapped to a board with an
exactly.
gun.
Well, but is there going to be anything left to kill them with strapped to a board when the Americans have already taken? There's that crux of like, hey, because we saw that a lot in Iraq, where there were certain military leaders who were like, hey, everyone just put up your hands and keep walking. We're not getting into this. So, there's all of those different variables that you have to take into account that is just frightening on a lot of levels.
Well, I'll just go back to this, and I know there's a lot of dimensions to it, but we have the technology and the resources to make any missile he develops obsolete as far as America is concerned. We can intercept those, and we should make sure that system works 100% of the time.
I agree.
Not 95% reliable, 100% reliable. And as soon as those are obsolete, as soon as they're obsolete as far as America is concerned, he becomes a problem just to China, just to South Korea, a problem to our allies like Japan,
yeah.
no doubt.
We're kind of punting it back, but on the same token, we have to protect us first. And I don't mean anything against our allies whatsoever, but we can't help them if we're not here.
But then they become motivated because they've got different incentives than us at that point.
True.
If our missile defense works and theirs doesn't, then they're going to have to work harder, I think, to dissuade him from having them.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
All right. That's it, sir. I want to thank you very much for discussing. Is there any message you'd like to get out to our listeners specifically?
I would just say this, and I'm not even sure whose congressional district I'm talking in. Don't tell me, so I can just say this.
We're nationwide.
Okay,
we don't
nationwide.
Have any region.
All right. Well, I'm going to tick off all of Washington then. Call your congressmen. Call your senators. They respond to phone calls. I wouldn't write a letter. I wouldn't send an email. Don't send a fax, for goodness sakes. Call them. You'd be shocked at how few phone calls I get. I represent 746,000 people.
Sorry, I got to stop this right now. He gave you excellent insight. Thomas Massey said this: if you want to get through to your senators, to your congressmen, your Congress critters, what you do is you call. They're not watching the emails. They're not reading the emails. They're not looking at anything.
They don't care what you have to say. They don't
care
like
what
you at
have
all.
to say. That's true. Phone calls mean everything. That's an incredibly important point that he just made.
I average about 10 phone calls to my office. Well, since you're nationwide, you're in my district, so I'll get 100.
Maybe
tomorrow.
And 98 of them are going to be me.
But here's the other thing. Just call your congressman and your senator. It's not effective to call somebody else in another state. Believe it or not, we've got caller ID. I know
we know.
Congress is obsolete for the most part, but we do have caller ID. And they're going to ask your zip code as soon as you call in. But that's the one thing that I didn't know when I wasn't a congressman that I know now, is that my letters didn't matter as much as my phone calls did. And so I'll just leave you with that. Whether you agree with me on the things I've said or whether you disagree with me, let your congressmen and senators know how you feel, and do it with a phone call. It's the best way.
Well, and we've said this time and again on our show, interact with the people that you elect to represent you as much as you possibly can, because they work for you. You do not work for them.
To be fair, we're in California, and our representatives don't believe that.
I don't even want to get into that.
Don't start. Be polite though. Don't start off with "I'm never going to vote for you again."
I have not
Let
done
them
that
take
more
it to
than
that level.
Right.
Let them take it to that level. Start nice. If they build up, then you can go to "I won't vote." Congressman Massey, sir, thank you so much for your time. We wish you nothing but the best. We hope to talk to you in the future, and thank you for your service to our nation, because it's people like you that will actually make that difference in Congress, and as a citizen, I greatly appreciate it.
And thank you for being a patriot, and I hope that doesn't get me audited, but thank you for being a patriot.
Speaking of patriots, I love your logo.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
When you handed me your card here at the convention and I saw that logo, I knew it wasn't fake news.
That might be the best compliment we've ever got.
It actually was.
Whatsoever.
Please be in touch with us.
Thank you.
Live from the floor of Freedom Fest 2017 at the Paris Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada, you're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And he's right. We're not fake news.
No. That was a great interview, and it gave you great insight as to how Congress works, how it functions, how he functions, what he really wants to see, his mindset, how he really is about liberty, his thoughts about the Second Amendment, his thoughts about the First Amendment. He's honest, he's clear, he's true. What more could the people of Kentucky in the 4th District are
So lucky.
incredibly lucky people.
So lucky.
He actually believes that he has a mandate to abide by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Oh, that's another thing. You remember when he pulled out? He had in his pocket a copy of the U.S. Constitution, and it wasn't fresh, and it wasn't brand new.
No.
It was dog-eared.
It was. As a matter of fact, I even commented on
Yep.
it. I said, you know what? I have one like that, and mine's dog-eared and highlighted. And he said, oh, look, mine's dog-eared too. And I'll be damned if it was not, in fact, dog-eared. And I think it was the one. It was the Constitution with the U.S. with the Bill of Rights, or with the Declaration of Independence, if I'm not mistaken.
Just that one thing right there. Just watching him, listening to him pulling that out of his pocket, his suit coat pocket, that tells me all I need to know about that guy right there.
Yeah, and look, he was talking about how he was afraid of losing his committee assignments when he voted against John Boehner. He was talking to us off script, if you remember,
right?
Afterwards, where he said, "Oh yeah, when or not Boehner, I'm sorry, Paul Ryan."
Yeah, Ryan.
He said, "Look, I didn't know that I was going to be on a committee or not after that." Because we serve at the pleasure of the leadership. He said, and they bill us for being on a committee.
Yes, didn't know that either.
Know that either. He said the RNC bills them based upon their committees they're on. And he got a bill for $300,000
right
to the RNC, which is how he found out, because it was this same exact bill he got the year before, which is how he knew he got on all of the same committees.
That's one of the strangest things when you know you're on a committee, when you get a fucking bill that big, when you get a 6-digit bill, and then after getting the bill you go,
yeah,
what the hell?
Yes. So wait a second. Your job is to go to represent the people, but if you want to be on a committee, you have to pay?
The first thing I thought about is when I wanted to work for SF.
Isn't that pay to play?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. When I wanted to work for SFPD years ago in the 70s, and I had to live there. So I lived in San Francisco for a while because I was stupid enough to think that I actually wanted to work for SFPD. So I went out on a ride-along with an actual inspector. Well, Dirty Harry, the movies were still playing. The original Dirty Harry was in 1971. One of the first things he said that he wanted to get out of patrol is that if you wanted a good foot beat, if you wanted a good beat, you paid for the best one. That was pay to play as well.
Yes. That's
just no one knows this.
Is it legal?
The RNC bills you, and my guess would be they sure as shite don't want you to know about that.
No, it's legal, I guess.
Apparently so.
Right?
But just like you say, if that that doesn't smack of pay to play to get into or remain on whatever committee you're assigned to.
Yes.
What else is that?
Yes.
What is that?
You show me in the Constitution where a political party has the authority to bill a representative in government to sit on a committee to govern.
Yeah, here you go, Clint. Let's put you on Ways and Means, okay? Oh, and you owe us $350,000 this year.
Yes.
Again, see my previous statement. What the fuck? No one seems to, and you know for a fact, if that's happening on the GOP side, if that's happening on the right side of the aisle, it's sure as hell happening on the left side of the aisle. The Democrats are paying just as well. Because if they weren't, oh my God, can you imagine the squeal from the people on the right side of the aisle? Oh, look, our friends over there on the left side of the aisle, Democrats, are not paying for their committee assignments.
Right.
So that means, yeah, they are too.
Of course. Of course they are. But just what a great interview, right? And the insight that he gives into Washington, D.C. I felt like I needed a shower afterwards.
Yeah, but it takes a guy like that to
not because of
tell
him,
right? But because of the information that he had. Melanie in chat says, when we're talking about that, the first thing Melanie says in all caps is "What?"
Oh, she didn't know. You didn't know. Breaking news.
Yeah, and she said that's ridiculous.
Yes.
How is that legal? Then she says, "Does the DNC do the same?" And we just answered that question. You can bet your arse it does, because if it didn't. Oh, the hue and cry you would hear from the RNC and the people who, on the Republican side, who want to be on all the nice committees themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Holy crap. That was, again, that interview was so terribly invaluable because of the incredible insight that he gives to nobody else.
Yeah, and I like the fact that he's so honest, right? He's just very forthright.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care. He's a whistleblower and he doesn't care. You know why? Because the people in Kentucky are going to elect him. Because that's what they sent him there to do.
And he's saying, essentially, by being honest like this, he's saying, you sent me there to do a job. This is the job that I perceive that I need to do. If you don't like this job, if you don't like the fact that I'm representing the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, as a matter of fact, I'm holding it close to my heart, literally, then don't vote for me. And who knows? I don't know whether he's a two-termer or not. I don't know if he's a freshman congressman or not. He might be a two-termer. Honestly, I don't know. But if he isn't, he sure is. Well, he talks like he's been there for at least
well, he was there last year. I know he was there for at least 2 years.
Okay.
So I don't know if he's. I think he is a first termer. I could be wrong. I don't know. I'd have to look.
Okay, but I tell you what, he speaks like he isn't. He speaks like he's knowledgeable, and generally junior congressmen don't get really good committee assignments.
I don't know that he had really good committee assignments, but I know he had 300,000 worth.
Yeah, that's what does it take? If that's his committee, what the hell does it take if you want to get on something considered really choice like an intelligence committee?
So
what do they charge?
You missed it.
That?
He spoke the following day. Remember, I told you. I think from what all I saw, we were the only media to interview him. But he spoke the following day, and I was in there for a couple minutes, and he said on the stage, he said, and I forget what the bill was, but he had a lobbyist take him to this bar and basically say, hey, if you vote my way, I can basically make sure you get on the Ways and Means Committee. This is a lobbyist that told him that. And his statement to the whole crowd, to the people at Freedom Fest that's there in this thing, he said I immediately walked out of there and took a shower. He said, but that's how Washington works. And I remember thinking, oh my, he goes, and just so you know, I'm not on the Ways and Means Committee.
Yeah, imagine that.
So just goes to show that's how much power these lobbyists have. Is you can take a congressman out and say, I can guarantee you'll be on the Ways and Means Committee. Sickening. So we have 2 minutes left. BC.
Melanie Collette made a very interesting point in chat. She said she didn't know that, and I have a master's in public administration. And then she says, and somehow, how is it that didn't come up? And then she finally says, I'm surprised Trump hasn't said anything about that. I wonder if he even knows. And the obvious answer would be, you can bet he doesn't.
Yeah, maybe not, but Melanie,
that is pay to play.
Melanie, I don't know how long you've been hanging out with us here, or if you were around last year, but we sent a tweet out that said we're practically doctors. And that trumps your masters. So that's probably why we knew and you didn't. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. But it's funny to me is that I'm practically a doctor, and now that your tweet, I'm going to have to screenshot that and put that up because that proves that we're practically doctors.
That's right. Well, we're halfway there. It's like the old joke, which goes, what do they call a man or a woman who graduates with a 70 percentile out of doctor school? Doctor.
Yeah. So we have 1 minute left. What was your favorite time at Freedom Fest?
The favorite time was getting to be together with you guys again and having jobs to do and being constantly busy. My feet, my hips, my arse were killing me. But I loved it that we had something to do every hour we were down there. Saw some great people, and I got a couple of interviews that I'm probably going to play that were just incredible. That was my favorite part.
And I think my favorite part was the free exchange of ideas. Just all of the great minds that are there, both that I agree, disagree with, the entrepreneurs, the dialogue and the debate that happened there. That was my favorite part. And I hate to cut it short, but it's 10 o'clock. Folks, this has been another episode of the Sackheads Radio Show, live from the SHR Media Studios with the great one himself, the bloviating Zeppelin. Sir, thank you so much for being with me.
Sackhead Shaun should be back next week. He was cleaning his fish tank tonight. He had a terrible algae explosion.
He was laundering his tutu. Let's call it what it is.
That's right.
Folks, that's it for us. Thank you for all of our friends for joining us in chat and for listening to us live as well as our playbacks and downloads. And please tune in to all our great shows here on the SHR Media Network. BZ, play us out, sir.
Berserk Bobcat Saloon tomorrow night. Go.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Shaun and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sack you. Sack you.
Radio.
Sack you. Sack you.
Radio.
Sack.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.